You're listening to Finding My Own Weird, where we'll follow yours truly on a journey to discover my own authentic weird self. I'm your host, Christine Lassiter. Joining me will be amazing guests who found their own formula and are living and thriving as their own wonderfully weird selves. So hold on tight, it's about to get weird. For my granddaughter's second birthday, we got her some marionette puppets, along with way too many other things. And I watched her open all of her gifts, excited about them all. But she just loved the puppets. She loved making them move and dance, and I was just overjoyed at her interaction with them. We live in this age of screens and 2D, but there's something so magical about watching a character come to life right in front of you. It transforms you. She recently moved to Texas, and I miss her with all of my heart. I miss her precious smile, her goofy faces, her big hugs. I miss her crawling up in bed with us, eating popcorn. And I miss her calling us Doodah and Gidgee. But most of all, I miss her incredible curiosity and watching her eyes light up with new discoveries. I love you, sweet Isabel.
Handstands.
What?
Careful.
What?
Yeah, you're making them work, huh?
Did you know that Portland has the third largest puppet population in the country? Well, I found out that and much, much more from my next guest. From entertaining friends with his marionettes when he was a kid to entertaining all ages as an adult. Steve Overton now owns an incredible puppet museum in the Elwood neighborhood, housing over 2,600 puppets. But the journey he took to get there was pretty fantastical. Please welcome Steve Overton to the show. Hi, Steve. Welcome to Finding My Own Weird. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, hello, Christine. I'm just thrilled to be here.
Oh, so glad you're here.
Thank you.
I actually met you for the first time a few weeks ago. I brought my granddaughter in to the Puppet Museum in Selwood. It was just a super neat place. I loved it. I definitely am going to be bringing her there more often.
Thank you.
It seems like it was quite the journey to get to where you are now.
It's been quite a journey.
So let's start from the beginning.
Start from the beginning.
Yeah,
Okay.
Tell me where you grew up.
I was born into a military family. My mom and dad married early when they were young. She was 19, he was 21. And they had 3 kids. I was born in California, but we lived all over the United States. For every 2 years, we would move. So it was crazy. And then we went over to Germany. And my mom has 3 kids. And she's like, we all are bilingual already. We're Spanish and English. But then she's like, what am I going to do with my kids? My dad's the military commander. And so she has 3 very precocious bilingual children.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, what am I going to do? And I kept crawling under the stages of these marionette shows. And I love puppets from the very beginning. When I was really little, I had hand puppets from Disneyland and things like that. But the marionettes fascinated me. So my mom found these little marionettes for sale called Pelham, which is one of the world famous toy companies. And she put together a club. Is this cool or what?
Yeah.
My mom rocked. She's like, okay, we're going to buy these puppets. And I said, I hate the stories. And she's like, well, write your own. Well, I don't like the scenery. Well, get out the paint. Here we go. Quit being lazy. Let's get on with it and do it. And when we were living in Germany, she formed this giant club, and the officers and the other people would bring their kids and go, okay, they're your kids for the weekend. We're going to France. And so they had a romantic holiday. My mom and dad had all these little kids. We had a ball.
Bless your mom.
My first puppet theater, indoor puppet theater, had hardwood floors and crystal chandeliers. It was part of a 6-plex apartment unit that we lived in. So here I am, like 7 years old, doing all these little shows. And it was remarkable. And then we started touring the elementary schools of the military bases. And we were doing their carnivals and things like that. So I was a show business kid from 7 to 9 years old.
And I bet the kids just ate that
Oh,
up.
we had a ball. It was so much fun because we could do fairy tales. We could do anything that's happening to a 7 to 9-year-old. My older brother was with me. He's about 18 months older than I am. And he was really good at it. I was really good at untangling them. So every time my marionette got tangled, they're like, "Here's Steve, it's all yours."
I think that's probably a good trait to have.
Yeah,
too.
all of your life. It's like I've been doing that all my life now, 65 years or 50 something. But so that's how I got started. My mother saw Sound of Music, Julie Andrews playing with the little
Mhm.
kids, and she was like, "Okay, I've got to do this with my kids because it's so creative. You're conquering worlds, you're learning to sing, you're learning to act, your art, and the kids are under my thumb."
And it's a 3D experience as
Very.
opposed to like, television, is so flat. But I can imagine that 3D experience of it and it just coming to life was just the coolest
The
thing.
puppets were very easy to work. They were all wooden bodies, were slotted and jointed. They're very high tech for the time. And the heads were out of pumice, sort of like pottery, but volcano dust. And Pelham is a really cool company. So I really fell in love with these puppets. When we moved to the United States, the Packers stole half of them. We had 90.
Oh my goodness.
These were a huge investment for my parents. It'd be like spending $100 for a kid's toy. Let's buy 90 of them. It's a lot. We got them for birthdays, Christmas, Halloween, all of that stuff. So we had a wonderful time doing that. But then we were like, oh no, what are we going to do? My dad is in military, so he's flying off to Vietnam. And he said, look, when I get back in a year, you guys have some of them. Just suffer through with what you have. And then we'll learn how to build them. We'll tear them all apart.
Oh.
So he comes back and he goes, okay, let's get down to it. Starts ripping the puppets apart and goes, oh, the bodies are all wood. Goes in. My mother doesn't have a single mop, broom, kitchen wooden spoon or left. Chops them all up, starts building all the bodies and stuff. And using a styrofoam head, my mom's like, Ken, go to the hardware store. Okay, will you please? Yeah. And by the way, pick me up, mop, broom, all these things, because it doesn't do it by itself. We don't have Cinderella's little mice to come in and clean up here, guy. Clue in, Dad. So it was really, really cool. And my dad helped me to build my first stages. So I was building puppets when I was 9 years old, and I was using paper mache and styrofoam balls. And my sisters, the batons have a rubber end. And my sister was a baton twirler when she was in elementary school. So I'm like, all right. When she retired, like in a year, because I just pulled those off and used those for puppet bodies.
Really?
I still have those marionettes
Oh, that's incredible.
for when I was 9 and 10 years old. Yeah, it's
Wow.
really fun. I have 7 of the original marionettes from Germany that we had that are actually from England. And then people have donated a lot to me. So now I have about 60 of them. They're the most marketable collector's toy as far as puppets go. Yeah, and so it's really cool. I have one that's worth $700.
Oh my goodness.
It's a little cow with a daisy in its mouth. You're like, that's worth $700 because it's rare. They didn't produce a lot of them.
Right.
The toy market, people don't understand that they make millions. And so people are like, well, it's from the 50s. Yeah, well, they made 40 million of them.
The age of it isn't necessarily the
Yeah,
indicator.
rocks are old too, but we had a lot of them on the planet, It depends on if it was a limited edition, if it's in mint condition, if it's in the box and it's not hurt. So I started collecting small toys at that point and puppets. So by the time I was in high school, I also started taking art classes.
Now, question on that. So
Mhm.
you're in the U.S. at that
Right.
point, and you have all these marionettes,
Right.
and you're in high school.
Right.
How did people react? How did your peers react to that?
Well, at first, in junior high, I put them away
Mhm.
because I wanted to be a fine artist. So I took in junior high pottery, printmaking, painting. And then when I got in high school, I had jewelry making, I had environmental drawing, I had watercolor, I had silk screening.
Oh, your school had a lot more stuff than
I went through a nationwide art program
Okay.
and graduated with a 3.8 grade average in art honors in the United States. And but my senior year, I wanted to go to the prom.
Mhm.
My dad had gotten out of the military, retired, and we just didn't have the money. And my art teachers went, didn't you do puppets? Yeah, that's for kids. Come on, give me a break. And they said, look, if you do puppet shows, we'll hire you. And we'll get all the teachers to hire you to do birthday parties and little things, and you can raise the money from prom. So I'm like, okay. And my dad goes, let's record. You write it. I have a tape recorder, an old Wallenstock tape recorder. We'll record the soundtrack. We'll play records in the background. And then I'll help you build a stage, a really cool castle stage. And so I'm like, okay, let's do this. And so my brother did some of the voices, my sister, my mom, my dad, myself.
So it was a full-on
A young
family
girlfriend,
endeavor.
full on family thing. And I wrote my first story about um, a birthday party of a princess, and it goes totally wrong with a witch flying in a vacuum cleaner, stealing her present because she crashes. And so it was called The Birthday Present. And so then I started writing another one. Then I came down to Portland when I graduated from high school. My art career, I was going to go to museum art school, did not happen to unfortunate circumstances. So I got a job as a night janitor and a job at the Ladybug Theater at the Washington Park Zoo. My dad helped me build a bigger theater, and I had my first theater when I was 18, turning 19, at Beaverton Mall.
Oh,
And
okay.
my first big newspaper article. And they said, oh, Master Puppeteer's been working 9 years, and it sounded great for this 18-year-old, 19-year-old
You're
kid.
like, that's a child.
And my big picture in it and everything, and these little teeny puppets, because they're only about a foot tall. And so it was really fun, and that's how people started calling me Master Puppeteer. And then I went, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to live up to this. So I had to learn how to do shadow puppetry, what they're made of, how to do them, and rod puppets and hand puppets, when the string puppets were what I really loved.
Right.
So I began doing that, and I got every puppet book I could find in the libraries, all since I was 7 years old, across the United States, and used book sale. They saw me coming. Steve, we've got 7 new books on puppets over there. They're gone. Boom. I
They
have
knew
about
you were probably one of the few that were buying a whole bunch of puppet
used
books.
puppet books. Even at Powell's, they knew me. They were like, oh my, here comes Steve again. I have 700. And it's a huge, it's probably the biggest library on puppetry and puppet books worldwide, in Oregon for sure. And so it's been a great resource for me. I'm mostly self-taught, but not all. I met Marty, who became a lifelong partner, in 1979 at a New Year's Eve party with a bunch of rock stars. I was invited, and they were like, okay, Steve, you be very careful how you say everything. We know you're a puppeteer. We know you're... And at that point, I think I was working for Savings and Loan also. So I had a day job. First I was a janitor, and then I got a job at Ben Franklin Savings and Loan, and I was a roving teller. So I had to have everything, business suits, my fingernails had to be cleaned, everything had to be... I couldn't have a beard, which really pissed me off because I had a beard when I was younger. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine. And I had a great time doing that and traveled all over Oregon. And that was a lot of fun. But where was I going with this? Oh. Yeah, and working at the Ladybug Theater was phenomenal. I learned the art of improvisation from a best in the business, and got connected with Reed College and took their programs on child development and psychology. Then they put me in the teaching staff. Now I'm 19 or 20, and I'm teaching improvisational acting to elementary school kids at Reed College. This is going to be a fairy tale life. You're going to go, how on earth did all this stuff happen?
So I assume that you made it to prom by
Yes,
doing
by doing that. I did.
yeah, and then that just must have
That launched it.
re-sparked it, because you said you'd put it away in junior high and you were kind of like, So the teachers kind of encouraging that must have just been like, okay, I'm back where I love.
Well, it was funny because my art teacher I'd had 6 different workshops, classes with her, said, this is perfect for you because you can paint all the backgrounds. You know how to 3D, make all the furniture and all that stuff. And my writing teachers said, this is perfect for your skills for writing. Continue writing and we'll continue critiquing. And so it really, I could do everything. And so when I was at the Ladybug Theater here in Portland and at Beaverton Mall also, I was in charge now of all of it. So I had my own business. I was registered with the state of Oregon as the Old World Puppet Theater. I wanted a sort of old-fashioned feeling because I was raised in Germany. So I love witches and dragons and trolls and fairies and pixies. And so those are sort of what I groove on, is that fantasy world. And yeah, so it really influenced my work. Meeting other puppeteers also really influenced my work. But that starts in the chapter right after Marty.
Oh yeah.
So,
So yeah, you met Marty. You met Marty at a New
and
Year's
a New Year's Eve
party.
party, and it took us a year to get together. Marty was in the music industry and worked for Elektra Records, so he knew Donna Summers and Rod Stewart, all of these, Jackson Brown, and he was in charge of recording studios for them. He was also an airline pilot in Hawaii. Just an amazing, amazing, very loving, kind man. And at first I was bisexual. I wasn't really sure. And being gay was not very open in the 70s. You could lose your job. You could lose all of your income. Your insurance could be canceled. And people today don't understand that it was very, very difficult in the 70s. And I wasn't sure either. I was young. I was still experimenting. I dated like 32 people, men and women both. I was engaged twice to ladies. And I thought, well, but at the end, I thought it's not fair. They need someone that's going to devote their life to them. Not, oh, well, I have this other habit, thing on the side, this other kind of interest. So I definitely decided that's it. I was going to become gay, and took Marty to meet my parents. And my parents were like, okay, he's huge. He's 6'4".
They didn't have any issues with the fact that you were gay.
They kind of had to accept it at this point because my father called off one of the weddings.
He's the one that called
He's
it
the one
off.
that called one of them off. And he's kind of like, well, we're just going to, do this. Then they became very supportive. Then my folks met his folks who had retired out here. They were from Boston, so they were East Coast. We were West Coast. So the families started getting together. He has a big extended family, and so do I. So Thanksgiving, Christmas, it was at our house sometimes, at my mom's house sometimes, or his mom's house. We at one point had 3 generations of people. It was amazing. So the parents all said, okay, his mom and dad were like, well, we wanted a daughter-in-law, but we got a son-in-law. You take care of him all your life. And I said, oh, well, we exchanged rings on Thanksgiving. And I said, look, I married a turkey. He's like, shut up. And so it was really fun all my life. We had exciting times. His extensive music background, not only is rock and roll, it also goes to blues and jazz and classical. And he worked for Elektra Records, and they had Nonsuch. So when we got together, we decided to move to Hawaii. So we moved to Hawaii, and I put all the puppets in my mom and dad's garage like a mortuary.
Oh, no.
And they started to get bigger. Because when I was working for Ladybug Theater, my boss called me and said, you're doing a show in 3 weeks, and it's not 30 people, it's 300. Your 1-foot-tall marionettes aren't going to really work. And I said, well, I saw a workshop when I was in high school, and I was participating. I saw a Japanese theater do these styrofoam 3-foot-tall puppets where they covered them with felt, costumed it, and they worked them all in black. So I can duplicate the marionettes like that. Maybe I'll just duplicate the black outfit as well and come out into the kids with them. And she's like, that's a great idea. It looked like Darth Vader doing a puppet show. I am your puppeteer. So we finally had to cut the robes in half so it wasn't so scary and do black shirts and black pants and gloves and hood. But I started something. Because I could take a dragon and run it into the kids. I could take Peter Rabbit and bounce him off the laps. No one had done this before, especially not in Oregon, where they had ventured right out into the audience with the show. So then my puppet stages had to get bigger, the sound systems, the special effects. And at this point, I started getting fascinated with opera and ballet and the staging of it. I wanted things that transformed. I wanted over-the-top costumes. I wanted special effects. The first time I was working with flash powder, I was in Beaverton Mall, and a wizard is coming down into my puppet stage, and we're taking flash paper and we're wadding it up, and we're using thread and going around and around with it, and then setting it on fire. That's a bad choice. The thread stays burning, and it hit the stage floor, which was indoor-outdoor carpet, and caught it on fire.
Oh, no.
So my wizard is trying to tamp it up with his feet. The smoke is billowing throughout the Beaverton Mall, and the manager comes over and he goes, okay, let's learn a little bit more about these special effects before you burn them all down,
Right.
Steve.
I mean, that's actually a pretty calm reaction to that sort of incident.
It was crazy. It was like, okay, what do you do? Well, I've always been raised to react, find the solution first, don't panic. And my mom and dad were scout leaders. My mom had a hotline. She developed the first hotline for women, for battered women.
Oh.
And she was in front of the United States government to do that. I became a hotline because I was her kid, one of the people who talk people out of suicide
Yeah.
and out of battered and get police to them right away. So I've done a lot of things with my parents. And so the way I was raised, all of the kids in our family, was if there's a problem, solve it. Don't worry about what you don't have, worry about what you do have. So it's been interesting. And also because I'm learning from books on how to build puppets, a lot of mistakes along the way.
Mm.
I wanted to weight my puppets, and I weighted them down with cat litter. It was cheap. We had cats. It was, something I could stuff into a shoe. And then I realized when I was walking with the marionettes, and especially rehearsing around our family, is that the cats would follow me around the room. I'm like, okay, this is not going to work. So a lot of trial and error. So the styrofoam felted heads with the sculpting over the top was what I started doing. They were 3 feet tall. And so I got bigger puppets. Now I started performing for like 600 people. And so for me, it was really exciting. It's like, oh my gosh, this is the big time I really am doing. Then I got an agent, and the agent got me a commercial job and said, look, we have to be very careful about this. We have to sign legal contracts. I know you've signed legal contracts with the mall and the different places you're performing, but this is for television. And they want you, for American Motors, to build a used car salesman, life size. And I went, oh my gosh. And so I thought, okay, use all your art background. And I built, he's about 5'2". He's a little bit shorter than a lot of men, are red-haired, green-eyed, used car salesman in a black and yellow and red checked suit.
Detailed.
Blinding. And I thought, okay, is this cheesy enough for everybody? And the American Motors people loved it. And we went into the studio and shot 4 commercials. The first commercial went pretty well until I was up on a sky lift. I was 30 feet above the cars. And he comes walking in and he jumps on the hood of the car and bangs the hood with his hands. And I broke his hands. And they stop filming and the director yells out, we have an accident on the set.
Oh, no.
Suddenly the paramedics all come in and people are flashing lights and all the lights are turning on. And I'm like, it's just a puppet. I'll be down in a minute to fix it. They might, oh my God, we thought you fell off the scaffolding.
Oh, no.
And when the director goes, oh my God, there's an accident. Okay, it was a puppet. All right. So it was fun and it was really exciting. And people were like, this is really amazing how you can get him to work. They fuzzed the camera just slightly. You swear he was kind of a big old sort of chunky red-headed dude. And so that was really fun. Then there was one film shooting. They said, we want him to run outside and put him in a pair of sweatpants. So I went and got a pair of sweatpants. I didn't have to sew those. I just went and bought kids sweatpants, put him in those. And they had me outside running on the roof on a beam that was 9 feet wide and 25 feet long. And I thought, okay, I'm going to have to be very careful. I love dancing. I danced in the clubs in the 70s. And so I thought I have to be very careful with how I walk on this beam. I'm going to fall 25 feet to the concrete.
Then it will be an accident.
Then it will be an accident, and we will have the paramedics here. My dad runs the safety and health company here in Portland. He comes to the shoot and shuts it down and says, okay, he has no guide ropes. He has no safety net. There is nothing on that young man who happens to be my son.
Yeah.
So we're closing this down until you get the safety precautions in. And it was a good thing because I did slip. I didn't fall, but I did slip. And because it was a lot with the puppet, who was about 40 pounds, for me to, on that balance beam, run him out 25 feet and run him back. So I had to go out like a balance beam performer with this giant puppet being about 25 feet above the ground. So it was really fun. And I was really honored and had a ball. And then I was told the American Motors decided the commercials were so successful They were airing them Super Bowl Sunday,
Oh my goodness.
nationwide.
That's a big, big deal.
I'm like flipping out, going, "Oh, this is so cool." We didn't have VCRs at that time, and
What year was this?
78 or 79, and it was before I met Marty. And I did see it. I did see it on TV. I was over at my dad's. We're watching football. I'm like, okay, here we go. Here we go. Where is it? Where is it? Because don't you care about the game? I said, no, I just want to see the commercial.
Well, I mean, that's how I feel about it now.
And now, a word from our sponsor, me. You know, I'm very serious about helping people with their mortgages. But in my off time, I can be a little bit of a dork, a little bit of a goof. And so I'm going to share with you this fun little rap I did about HOAs. Now, this is a story about my HOA became the president. Took the reins one day. The insurance was whack. It gave me a scare. Stairs started collapsing. Man, it wasn't fair. No money in the bank. Had to make a stand. Paid repairs out of pocket. It wasn't planned. So if you're buying a spot with an HOA, do your homework. Make sure it's okay. In the world of property where HOAs play, check financials. Don't let them sway. Make sure it's maintained from night to day. Do your research. Make the right play. Found myself in a spot quite dire. HOA president, the stakes were getting high, but before you sign, before you commit, inspect the records. Don't let the deal split financial stability. A crucial affair, no surprises, no collapsing stairs. Units well maintained, that's the key. In the world of HOA, that's the decree. In the world of property where HOAs play, check financials. Don't let them sway. Make sure it's maintained from night to day. Do your research. Make the right play. Now, let me take a minute, just sit right there. I'll tell you how it became the HOA's heir. In the realm of real estate, be wise and aware, or your dream home might turn into a nightmare. So if you're considering an HOA life, avoid the pitfalls, navigate through the strife, inspect the papers, don't be caught unaware. Make sure your investment is beyond compare. Before you sign that dotted line, ensure your property's going to be just fine. In the world of property where HOA play, check the financials. Don't let them sway. Make sure it's maintained from night to day and do your research. Make the right play. And you're welcome for that. Well, if you have any questions about HOAs or any other mortgage questions, you can reach out to me at Christine at tworiversmtg.com. That's CHRISTINE at TWORIVERSMTG.com. Or you can call or text me at 903-343-1370. NMLS 2248608 1647999. And now, back to your program.
Marty loved football. My dad loves football. My family does. So I watch.
You have
you
to,
know,
power through.
and power through it and go, okay. It's like gladiators. To me, it's gladiators fighting.
Right.
And they do it very well. Yeah. And so it's really cool. My whole family is sports. Well, I'm not. I'm artist. But I have had dance before. I've had jazz and movement and contemporary. And then I did, when I was growing up, costuming for a ballet company, so I learned how to sew tutus when I was 17. I got roped into that. So it was fun. And I started sewing the costumes myself. My mother was teaching me. My grandmother had taught me how to work a sewing machine. So my first response was, Grandma, that's for girls. And she goes, no, that's called a tailor. Men have been sewing all the history of mankind.
Right.
And so she goes, I'm going to teach you a little story about a tailor and flies and fly swatter and stuff. And so that was also my first reaction to fairy tales, a big reaction to fairy tales. Hans Christian Andersen and Grimm was from my grandmother. And she got me these books to read that were way advanced. I was like 5, 6, and 7 years old. So anyway, that was my first nationwide commercial. So I'm up on my way. Then my agent gets me another job. And he goes, you look really nice. You're fine. You're slim. I was very tiny. I was about 5'2", and I was about 75 to 80 pounds. And so I've always been very slight. My family's like Vikings, big giant people. I'm the runt of the litter. And so I'm like, okay, fine. And he goes, it's a jean commercial. So I said, okay, this is great. So I'm in there with all these models that are death-defyingly handsome, right? And the women are death-defyingly beautiful. Here's this little geek who does puppets, And they found out I'm so tiny when they were trying to put the male jeans on me. They said they're not going to fit him. His waist is too small. And he has sort of a bubble butt. And so I'm like, well, thanks. And they're like, no, it's nice. I mean, it's nice.
Yeah.
And you have beautiful hands and everything else. So they put me in the girls' jeans and they had me put my hand on my hip. And then they repositioned my knees and shot from the waist down. Okay. And we had a very long shoot. It was about 2.5 hours. And they did all sorts of things with the special effects and the cameras and everything else. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And so it was great. And then they said, thank you very much. We'll let your agent know. You will get paid at least for the cattle call. Now, if we use your photograph, you will get a payment for that too. And so I'm like, this is very cool. And all the other models are like looking at me like, yeah, right. So I get a call later from my agent. He goes, I have good news and bad news. Good news is the check's here. Good news is they are using your photograph. I said, well, what could possibly be the bad news? He goes, it's the advertisement for women's jeans. And it's going to be on billboards all over the state of Oregon, and in particular, the campaign in Portland.
And I mean, did you feel like you could say, hey, that's me?
I did. It was like, to my friends and stuff, and they're wolf whistling and they're rousing the heck out of me. They're like, yeah, great. You can't get it. I said, oh, come on. It was money. And,
They would have done the same
and
thing.
I'm tiny. Okay. And I had to have my hands real manicured because I was working at a bank at that point. And I have very long fingers, very long, thin fingers. And I'm not real hairy. So it's like, okay, cool. So it was funny. And then when I went to Texas, and my dad had bought me a pair of these jeans because they're very expensive. And he bought the women's
jeans,
right size.
yeah, because that's what fit you.
And they gave it to me for Christmas at my uncle's ranch in Texas. And my nephew's about 2 years younger than I am. And he's like, well, why don't you put the jeans on? Because when I opened the box, I'm like, oh my God, these are fabulous. Thanks, Mom. Because they're really expensive.
Mhm.
And I said, I'll put these on when we get home. And my little nephew's like, no, you got to put them on now. My uncle, everybody is there, the family going, you got to put it on. So my dad tells the whole story.
In Texas.
Why I'm getting dressed. So I come out and they went, turn around the model. And so my nephew goes up, slaps me on the ass and goes, well, that's the prettiest damn ass I've ever seen. He's like 12. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die of brutal death right now.
That sounds like 12-year-old Texas.
Just kill me. Yeah. And then he starts blushing. He goes, oh my God, am I going to be queer for this? I said, no.
Yep, that's how it happens.
Yeah, right. There it is. Now you're going to start liking pink and wearing lip shade. No. Suddenly have a passion for leather and wigs, right? So it was crazy. And that was the one thing also growing up gay. I really drift more toward the leather scene and the bear. However, I started getting involved in the drag scene because I was called up by my agent and said, Darcel is shooting a video with Gallagher, the comic that smashed the watermelons.
That's a weird combination.
It was a very weird at Timberline Lodge. And we want you to bring up your wizard puppet and an elf puppet, and another puppet. And shoot, this time I was attached to Marty at this point. And so we trot on up there. Marty has no idea who Darcel is.
Yeah.
And I had done sets for Darcel also when for the youth, there was a place called Mildred's Palace in Portland where the young people could go disco dance.
Oh.
And they had the gay shows there too. And they had mini drag, the younger, under 21. And I did whole Art Deco sets for them. And it was really fun. So I met Walter. I knew Walter from there.
Mhm.
And then they used the sets all over Portland, different bars. So he knew I did puppets and he contacted my agent. So I went up there. We had a ball. And I had long strings on the marionette. I'm up on the fireplace until he comes out as Mrs. Claus.
Oh.
I just about fell off the ladder. And I was laughing so hard. I said, oh my gosh, Walter, this is amazing. And he goes, it's Mrs. Claus. And I said, oh, yeah, that's right, Darcel. I'm so sorry. No, not Darcel. It's Mrs. Claus. So we had to do all these takes and stuff. And then I got to work with Gallagher, which was hilarious.
How did that collaboration I mean, because if you told me that Darcel was collaborating with any comedian,
Gallagher,
Gallagher would probably be near the end of that list.
It was crazy. And I knew who Gallagher was. I'd seen him on TV. So it was really fun. And I really liked that.
Oh, that's so bizarre.
It was crazy. Another one of the younger episodes of my young life was when I was working for the Ladybug Theater. And they called me and said, we want you to be on a television show. And I said, okay, I've never been on TV before. So it's real easy. It's a kids' bumpity television show.
Easy.
And Bob Griggs is really a nice guy and you'll have fun. And we want you to take, because we're doing fairy tales, we want you to take the little witch that you still have, and we want you to take Peter Pan. And then we want you to talk about the Ladybug Theater and just be enchanting, okay? And don't be gay.
Oh.
And I'm like, watch what you say. So she gives me, my boss, whose name is Kaylee, gives me a thing and says, Steve, you can be a little flamboyant sometimes. And so I said, okay, no, all right, I will. And I had a very high-pitched voice to start with.
You had to straighten it up a little bit.
I had to deepen it as much as I can. The acting came in. But what did they ask me to do? A witch. So I have to do a high-pitched cackle and all of that. So I get into the Bumpity show. They give me like 2 minutes of directions, and that's it. Stick me on a ladder above the set. And this green thing that I thought was a frog comes on, and the witch lands, and he immediately starts attacking her, saying things about her, and she's the villain, and he's going to drop a house on her. And she says, look, I'm just here to talk about the fairy tales. Now you be nice. You be nice, or I'll turn you into a frog. Oops, somebody already has. Then he went ballistic. I am not a frog. I'm a bump on the log, left over from Oak's part. My eyes are ping pong balls. This is pigeon crap on my eyes. And he just went nuclear. I'm this young kid on a ladder performing downward. And I said, well, I guess that we know that now, Mr. Bumpity. You are definitely not a frog. This is a charming little set. It almost looks like something out of Hansel and Gretel. I don't like Hansel and Gretel. Well, I think I'm going to get on my broom and leave here. And I think I'll just go let Peter Pan know he can fly in. And he goes, good, one fairy to another. Here we go. I just about fell off the ladder. Now the camera people are dying laughing. And I'm like, crap. What the hell am I supposed to do now? Peter Pan ends. Well, hi there, Mr. Frog. How are you? We don't have... oh, you're not a frog. That's right. You know, my mind is just going, trying to... And I said, oh, don't be gay. Don't be gay. Don't be gay. And he sings things like, see, fairies can fly, both of them. And I made it through. The camera people almost did not. They are dying laughing because now I got angry. And Peter Pan lands and puts his hands on his hips. Listen here, Mr. Bumpity. I've had about enough of you, or I'm going to have Captain Hook come and gut you. And so then we started arguing. And we got through the whole thing. And I thought, I'm going to get fired. 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 And my boss tortured me. She waited all the next day and then called me and said, you need to come into the office in person. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay. So here I'm, scared to death. One, I'm going to lose my puppeteering job and my teaching job at the Ladybug Theater. And she said, okay, you went over the line.
Yeah, because it was your fault.
You went over the line with the gay joke. She went over the line with the witch, threatening the TV star. And she goes, but I have to tell you, you are 19 years old and he is 45. He baited you into that. But let me tell you this, what we're going to do. For the next 2 hours, I'm going to tell you what you can and cannot say on live television. Because it cannot be edited. And you could have put us in jeopardy as well as yourself. And so I'm like,
you'll take the thrashing and
I'll take the thrashing and I'll keep my job.
Right.
So that was great. Years later, I ended up with doing in the Portland Puppet Museum, Puppets of Portland, which was an exhibit with 20 companies from Oregon. And one of my friends called and said, Bob Griggs is still alive. Weren't you on that television show? Go get the Bumpity puppets and see if you can get Bob to loan you them. So I called him up and said who I was. And he goes, I've heard of you. I don't remember you being on the show. I said, that was a very long time ago. And so I went in and interviewed with him and brought Bumpity home in a suitcase. And of course, then I had to tell everybody the story. So I have to have the witch and Peter Pan, which I still have, right there with the great arguing over the Bumpity. And so it was really fun. And he goes, there were days because it was live. And he goes, I wasn't feeling particularly friendly that day, but when you flew in with the witch and you were really good, but you were so young, I thought, okay, I can mess with it.
Yeah.
And he goes, I just messed too much with you and I'm really sorry. And I said, it's okay. And he goes, but you have to admit, it was one of the funniest things that we've ever done. And the cameraman will always remember it. And I said, yeah. And he goes, so, and then years later, when I did it again, his daughter has now donated the puppets to me. And so we did a gigantic salute to him last year. And I'll do another one with the puppets, and people could take their photos with him and the different characters from the TV show. And we recreated a miniature set. And then the letters from the children and all of that about Bob and his wife. So Bumpity has now been part of the television puppets for the Portland Puppet Museum. And for me, it's one of those round, all the way around, you know, when I was young. And now I've got a great story to tell about the battle between the Knot Frog on the wall and the Knot Witch and the Knot Fairy Peter Pan, you know. So it's just real fun.
Oh, that's incredible.
So I moved to Hawaii after I met Marty, and we stayed there for a while. And then my parents had my puppets, and I moved above an agent who said, "Didn't you do puppets?" And I went, "Haven't I been down this road before?" "Yes, and I've done television commercials and TV shows." And she goes, "Well, we're on Maui." And she said, "There is a real need for this here. So contact your folks and have them shipped over." In the meantime, I got a job as a window designer for a children's toy store who had 4 different locations, and then a Hawaiian clothing store who had 11. So I was bombing around doing window designs and stuff, and really enjoying that from my art background and stuff. And then I opened the puppet theater again. And I went to a cocktail party when I was just getting started with a giant blue dragon, and met Elisa Cosmer, who became one of my lifelong friends and lifelong puppeteers. She goes, "Mom, I have to talk to the gentleman with the dragon on his shoulders," and roped her into doing the shows on Maui with me.
So you went to this cocktail party, it was a regular cocktail
It
party?
was a regular cocktail
And
party
you decided,
to take the
you know what I
dragon.
need to do? I need to take a dragon.
My agent said, "You have to promote the theater and us doing the shows in the
Oh, that's
malls.
great.
So take the dragon with you." And so I did, and took him with me, and it was really a lot of fun. And the dragon was actually built before I left Portland. I was going to be sponsored by Reese's Foods doing a children's television show for PBS. My mom and dad helped me build the puppets, and they were the 4-foot tall. And we did the entire Little Mermaid. And the dragon was a storyteller with 2 children coming into a cave that were caught in a fishnet. And he started weaving the story of Hans Christian Andersen's Little Mermaid. That show was hilarious and tragic, and is now sailing around the Hawaiian Islands. When I went in to film it, the camera people were drunk. Seriously. And it's just the little kids
For this children's,
puppet show, and they guarantee me these special effects and all of these things. And then Reese's wanted to sponsor $500,000 in the 70s
That's a
for me to do this
massive amount of
massive
money.
amount of money. And so we got the whole thing shot, and it took 3 days. The cameraman fell off the camera during one of the days of shooting, and then the mermaid tail separated. And I'm starting to do, excuse the expression, beaver shots in the middle of a kid's puppet thing. And I said, "Cut." And they went, "You can't cut. We have to say cut." I said, "Her tail is falling off, and I have to have legs inside." So I get the mermaid following a story. And then we finally get the film, and there's a big showing of it. And I'm all really excited. It was the biggest piece of crap. The audio went wrong. The video went wrong. The special effects were a couple bubbles. That was it. Oh, definitely not anything Reese's was interested in. And so I was heartbroken. So when I went to Hawaii, when I landed, I took the film 3/4 inch and just pitched it. Mercifully, I have a secondary copy if I ever want to blackmail myself with some kind of crap. The director of Ladybug Theater said, "I wish you would have gotten us involved. Instead, this is where you went wrong.
Yeah.
And this is where you can't help the cameraman not caring what they're doing." And sometimes the PBS people have volunteers. So, it depends on the budget. It depends on all that stuff. So that was my first encounter with PBS and the world of public television. Okay. Which I've been involved several times over and over and over. But, it was a disastrous Little Mermaid. But I did very similar to the Disney show. The mermaid had a friend right? The Sea Witch was campier than crap because I'd worked with drag queens doing their hair and their makeup and all of that. So when Little Mermaid did come out, I was like, okay, I'm familiar with the way they twisted the story. And in ours, it's the same thing. She does marry the prince. Her best friend was a baby shark named Flaws. Yeah. And the Sea Witch was named Sandwich.
Oh,
And she wanted to open up a tuna factory. And she wanted the mermaid tail for the tuna cans. It was product endorsement. What can I
course.
say? So I was even thinking of that kind of thing when I was younger. So it's crazy. So we went to Hawaii. We stayed there for a year. We went to a very, very large convention. And I thought, okay, we'd set up the big marionettes. We'd done a few really nice recordings. My acting skills were really improving. And things were going very, very. And so, excuse me, we're going to turn off Tinkerbell's little ding here. It was all fine. I went to Los Angeles to a huge puppet convention with people from all over the United States. And we flew over their invitation to perform a new show I'd written. And they decided as soon as we got there that they weren't going to let us do it. We had sent a video of it on Super VHS for them to premiere it, to look at it first. We didn't have time. I said, we just spent $6,000 on airfare and the transportation of the puppets and the stage and the equipment. And they said, well, I don't know. We have to talk about it. One of the older puppeteers named Frank Paris met us and took a liking to us and said, I'm going to make sure you perform. I don't care if it's outside in this little amphitheater at lunchtime. We were one of the hits of the festival. They had never seen anything like it. The comedy, and we did it live. The stage was 8.5 feet tall. It stretched out 10 feet. This was all packed in suitcases. It was 3-level playing of the dragon was in a moat. The marionettes were all on the top over. I was over on the top. Came down. So that was a big hit. And here we are, all these young kids. We're only like 21, 22 years old. And Marty's 13 years older, so he's in his early 30s. So that began my introduction into Puppeteers of America, which is a nationwide organization. And with Frank Paris, who is this marionette person who created Howdy Doody, but he was internationally known. Before that, he performed for the Queen of England. He was doing dancing marionettes like Carmen Miranda and Josephine Baker and Sonia Henning. Worked with characters from Disney. He's the only marionette artist that had known Disney and worked with Dopey and several other characters, the ostrich from Fantasia. And he did a nightclub act and stopped Radio City Music when I was younger. So I got to know him as more like a grandfather mentor. Nuts. This gentleman from Texas was nuts. Gorgeous, famous, fabulous, like a smart-ass grandpa. And he saw my work, and he goes, I've seen your artwork, your professional artwork as well, Steve. You can sculpt, dude. You know how to do that. And quit making ugly ladies. And stop using your mom's prom dresses for costumes. If you're going to build marionettes and you're going to be in this industry, you're going to have to, first of all, learn how to sculpt. And I'll teach you a new technique called neoprene, where you make a plaster Paris mold off your sculpt, pull it apart, clean it up, seal it up, turn it over, pour ammonia and rubber inside, let it sit for a couple hours, dump it out so it's like a hollow shell, like a chocolate Easter bunny hollow one. And then you let it air dry, then you can sand it, cut it, and paint it. It's lightweight, and it's waterproof. And you could drop it off a 2-story building. It is beyond. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. So Marty and I are like, okay, let's learn how to do this. At this point, we've moved to San Francisco. So now we're working for a company called Optical Memory Report. And this was an international newsletter that went out about how CDs and DVDs are being developed. This is in the early 80s, 81. And so Marty is the editor, and I am the artistic layout artist, design. I also decided I'm going to open a puppet theater here. So I put in an ad in the newspaper. I had 65 applicants. I hired 7 people and started building the Old World Puppet Theater over again with the neoprene puppets and started really doing the costuming. and really putting the money in. And then we went to recording studios to do 16-track recordings. Then we started using the Nonesuch, which was the record company that Marty used to work for. We got permission to use their recordings and the rights to use them for our stage shows. So this is the first kids series that was introducing kids to classical music. Very famous classical music. And I started writing more of the medieval fairy tales. And then I started performing all over San Francisco and all over the Bay Area. And then when I was bored, I would fly down to LA and spend 3 weeks with Frank, being spoiled rotten. And I would go into his garage, and he had 3,000 books. Help him pack them, dust them off, tell stories, clean them up, or he was working on a project, help him with that. Or because he was in his late 60s, help him around the house. The man was like a grandfather to me. I loved him dearly, but I used to harass him. I'd send him letters. Dear occupant, how are you doing? Have you paid your bills yet? Have you got the air conditioning fixed? Because I'm not coming down if you're in the air conditioning. We used to drink scotch and tell stories. And we went out all over the LA area, and he knew everybody. So I met Sherry Lewis.
Oh.
I got to watch Sherry Lewis perform in Disneyland. And he goes, we're going to meet her after the show. And I said, this is so cool. I'm so excited because I love Sherry Lewis.
Of course.
And I've seen her television show and, all of that. And this is going to be amazing. So I watched her show and my jaw hit the floor. She was doing such adult material at Disneyland. I was shocked. Really, truly, truly shocked. And I'm like, Frank, this is amazing. He goes, well, you can tell Sherry all about it. So I'm like, no, I could. He goes, I'm sure she'd like to hear your response. So after the show's over, she did a bunch of different characters, not just Lambchop. Lambchop was drunk. She was hammered on
What?
martinis at Disneyland. And she had a kangaroo, old captain, that was playing a violin, but he didn't have rosin for the bone. She's trying to look for his pouch left and right. She said, it's not in there. And he goes, no, but you made an old man very happy. These are the kind of jokes that are happening here
That
in the
is
80s
shocking.
and then she comes out dancing with a life-size Fred Astaire puppet. And I'm like, whoa, that is really trippy. Because she has fake arms and different things are attached to her and stuff. It was magnificent. So I'm back there and I'm meeting Sherry. And the first thing she does is she looks at Frank and she slaps him. And he just starts cracking up. She goes, do not put your elbow on my head again. That's for last time. And he hugs her and picks her up off the ground. She goes, you're not supposed to do that either, naughty boy. And he goes, this is Steve. And she goes, I've heard of him. And
Did that just floor you?
it floored me. And she goes, you do the marionettes. And then I said, go ahead and say it. The one with the ugly women that are in my mother's book. She goes, no, they said you were really progressing in your art. And I said, I was amazed at how adult the shows were. And she said, I'm going to tell you something because you're in the industry. You have a great start. You're very young and you're super, super talented, Steve. Your artistic skills are higher than most people who are building puppets. When you write for everybody. You write for the children, you write for the parents, and you write for the grandparents in the back row. The worst thing that can happen to you as a writer and a show producer is to have people talking about what they did during the day. Oh, the kids will love this. Making noise, not paying attention, having the grandparents go, why did I get dragged into this? And then the parents go, gee, I didn't really have a great time. I don't think I'll bother with puppet shows anymore. You have to entertain everyone.
Mm.
Please take this to heart. And I have. That was the wisest thing. It was just amazing. I was inspired by her in so many ways. And so I did at one point when I moved to Portland, we were doing adult shows. And I thought, I don't want to dance with Fred Astaire. That's too gay. Good Lord, that's too gay. Okay, so what am I going to do? I'm going to do the Masochism Tango by Tom Lehrer, which is a spoof on tango. And I'm going to make this giant 8-foot rabbit with a dog collar in a ball gown, dripping with blood, with leather laces and chains. And it's a whole spoof. You know, the tango is the man and she's the prostitute and all of this whole sexual it's reversed. She beats the crap out of me. And I had so much fun doing it. I did artichoke music and I've done it a couple different times. It's very hard to do, though, because she weighs 35 pounds. And when you go to do a tango dip, you have to do it on your toe and your other leg goes up. And I have 35 pounds dragging me over. When you do a dip in regular ballroom dancing, you have someone that is doing counterbalance. You're not. Take a 5-year-old, get on one toe, take him all the way to the ground, and pull all the way back up. It's very difficult to do. Yeah. But it was fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
When I finished the dance, it's on my YouTube channel, by the way. When I finished the dance, I collapsed to the ground because the illusion is so strong. If I do it correctly and people don't know, if I'm just doing it for a nightclub back when I've done several for around Portland and stuff, and people don't know it's a puppet. They don't know it's a puppet. They think it's a person in just a big bunny head because she has black gloves on and they're moving all over my body. I'm moving with hers. We're changing hand positions. Her feet are attached to mine, so her feet are moving as well. It's a fun illusion. And Shirless is the one that
Gave you permission.
gave me permission and showed me how to do it. I love her daughter, Mallory. When I met Sherry also at Disneyland, she said, I have a gift for you. And I said, oh, that's how absolutely sweet of you. And Frank said, just take it. And she goes, it's a Lambchop. And I said, the Lambchop? She goes, don't be
No,
silly.
yeah.
Okay.
Come on, man.
I made 9 of them. Mallory, my daughter, went with me to the nightclub shows and TV specials and all that stuff ever since she was really tiny. She would sleep with her. She would drool all over her. Then you put the puppy dog in the bed with her. That puppet was so covered with slime that I had to make 9 of them. So this is the prototype of the first life-size, realistic Lambchop that we are going to be producing. So I said, would you sign it? And she goes, I'll sign it and kiss it, yes. And she goes, there's only 6. And I think you should have it because I think someday it will mean something. And I was floored. So, I took it. And when we left, Frank goes, be very careful with it. Put it somewhere special. Don't just put it out on the display case. And for God's sakes, don't let kids play with it. Because there's only 6. And Sherry signed it and kissed it. So I'm like, yes. And then the product should come out in the next year on the open market, which it did. And so it was really, so I have a gift from Sherry herself of one of the prototypes of the toys that went to China to have them manufactured, and then they came back and the prototypes were all approved. So it's really, really neat.
Oh,
And Sherry worked it. So it's also bad. I also have her handprint inside it and stuff. So it's really cool. So that was really neat. When Frank Paris died, I inherited some of the puppets from him as well. So I have the first puppets ever seen on NBC in 1947 for the Howdy Doody show. They're in the museum right now. It's a circus drummer it's kind of a major, the guy that conducts, and it's a monkey. And that's set in the circus, which is the Howdy Doody show was. Frank designed the puppet originally for Buffalo Bob, and they did the Adventures of Toby. His little circus act that he toured around the world with was on TV in New York in 1947. So those 2 puppets are there. And then another television show, New York, was Pixie Playtime, and I have the dragon from there. He's from Texas, and he's got a Texas accent, and he has his little sailor cap on. His name is Willie. And he's like, I'm a fierce and ferocious fool. Run for your lives. Just do it with a Texas accent. So he's in the building, too. This is real cool. So in San Francisco, I opened the theater. I started performing for Macy's. We did all 11 stores 4 seasons a year. Then I started performing with the opera and the ballet. Then I got another agent again. And my agent said, I got a call. And I said, okay. And I was also working with the school districts. When I was working with the school districts, the superintendent of California schools called me and said, we want you to work with this guy, you may have heard of him, on developing a program for handicapped and emotionally disturbed children using puppets. And I said, I would love to work on such a program. And they said, it's going to be it's like a couple weeks. You're going to have to be involved in this, and you have to set a format and a curriculum. And I said, who am I working with? And they said, George Lucas.
Oh,
Yeah, you kind of know him, right? And I said, yeah, heard of him. So I got to meet George, and I got to work for 3 weeks with him. And we set up this handicapped physical healing program with emotionally disturbed kids, handicapped kids, uh, all of this. And it was phenomenal working with him. And then people were shell shocked that here I'm at this age and I met him. So the call from my agent was, George wants to see you. He's shooting a new movie for Blake Edwards. And I said, oh, cool. And it's a sexual comedy. And then he helped with the puppets. And I said, what? Wait, okay, I don't get this. Well, he's asked for you personally, go up. And and you cannot give this address out to anybody because it's Lucas Ranch. It's the codes. It's how to get into the ranch where they filmed everything. It's their offices. So I said, fine. And he goes, and the other thing that's really interesting is they don't want you to shave your beard off because by now I have an agent. I have a beautiful chestnut colored beard and medium length hair. And you can't do anything with your hair. And I've gone from a blonde to brunette to clean shave, mustache only, to full beard and dark hair now, and was doing various things with newspapers and stuff in my agent. So I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. So I get up there to the ranch, and it was really fun. And I'm looking at the secretary, and she says, we're expecting you. And there was no other buddy. It was just me. And I said, is there anybody else on this? She goes, oh, we've already done the other interviews. It was kind of a last-minute decision. And I said, okay. So I read half of the script and put it down. And I said, okay, what's next? And she goes, you didn't finish it. I said, I've already written 9 puppet plays, and I've won 2 major awards. Best Puppet Plays by the Board of Education in California, and received a trophy for that. And I've also written and received a trophy from the National Librarians Association, Best Children in Puppet Plays. And she goes, that's puppets. And I said, well, that's what you're asking me to do is puppets. And George comes around the corner. Are you giving her a hard time? And I said, and he goes, so if you read the script, Steve, or if you only read half of it, tell me how it ends. So I said, okay, this is how it ends. Am I close? He goes, no, you're deadly onto it. So you and I will talk about some of the script later, but I want to introduce you to my production staff. And I said, okay, the bedroom scenes and these, he goes, do you know who Busby Berkeley is? I said, yes, I do. I know very much who the producer was. Or the film producer with he worked with Carmen Miranda, he worked with all these people with the kaleidoscope kind of imagery in the film in the 40s and 50s. And he goes, well, we're kind of going to do that with the props that we're creating, but we don't know how to create them. I said, you don't know how to create them? And he goes, no. And I said, it is a glow-in-the-dark prophylactic that the girl gets from Chinatown and has John Ritter, who is the male star.
John Ritter?
John Ritter, and put it on. And then he's going to have sex, the lights turn off, and it goes up and down, and it's all excited and bouncing around the screen. This is what's written in the script. And her other boyfriend, before John comes in, he's already gone to Chinatown, barges in, goes into the other room while John is in going to the bathroom and putting it back on because it slipped. And he comes out with one, and they have a Star Wars dueling prophylactic dick duel. And I was like, okay, this is insanely crazy. Then we want to do a Busby Berkeley where she's remembered all of her boyfriends. And they're all coming out of like the dresser drawers, out of the closets, some shooting out from under the bed. And they form these kaleidoscopes. And I'm like, this is going to be really exciting and fun. It's just going to be fun to do. And I said, just hide my name in the bottom of the scripts because I'm working with the ballet and I'm working with all of that. And they said, okay, fine. So that's great. Now talk to them about how to do them. I said, go down to a porn store. What's wrong with you? You build Star Wars in your damn puppets, for God's sake. Go to a porn store, get a dildo, make a soft sculpture, a mold over the top of it, rubberized, take it out, pour casting latex in it, then put a flashlight and a battery in it. You got it. Put it on an elastic strap and let it wobble. It's not brain surgery. And he goes, okay, that's fine. I said, he goes, none of us thought of it, but we knew that you would. Says, is that a commentary on me? And he goes, it's fine, Steve. We all know you're queer in a $3 bill. It is not something, it's not a big mystery, all right? You can butch it up as much as you want. I was just laughing. He's so nice. He is so nice to work with. And so I said, this is going to be fine. And he goes, by the way, I want you to talk to Blake about it also. So that night when I got home, Blake called and talked to me for an hour and a half on the phone. And I'm not really shell-shocked because I've been around the world and stuff, but this is a very big Hollywood producer. Mm. And George was sort of like my best coffee friend that, yes, I love Star Wars. I think he's brilliant. And so I'm like, okay, yes, Mr. Edwards. And he goes, Steve, just call me Blake for God's sakes. I mean, we're talking dicks here. Okay.
The formalities are out the
They're
window.
out the window. We are pushing the envelope on this sexual comedy about John Ritter being in love with him and all the women problems that he has. And he goes, do you know John's work? I said, I love Three's Company. I
Hello.
really do.
So good.
So I knew exactly who he is and everything else. And he goes, great. And he said, so you're going to be filming the special effects. So I went into the studio. We're going to film where they come out and they do the formations. And they wanted me on the camera with the cameraman that dollies up into the sky. And so I get onto the camera. They turn the lights off and shoot it up 25 feet in 3 seconds. And I hear, I'm joking. And I'm afraid. It flashes a knee with the giant puppet falling off. And he goes, you're hooked on. And he said, put one hand around my waist, lean back. We hooked onto your belt. You will not, if you fall, you're going to be a giant piñata. Don't fall. You're sitting. Now sit down and stop shaking. And so I was up there with them and we did the scenes and there were multiple ones. It was a ball. I had a blast during it when I finally calmed down. I'm really not afraid of heights, but if you're up
Dark fast.
dark fast like that, you're like, I can't see a thing, so it was really cool. So I got that all done. Okay. I'm going to quicken this up because I only had like 20 minutes left. So we get it all shot and George is like, this is so cool. Thank you so much, Steve. The check will be in the mail. Da, 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 da. And it was nice working with you. And then he calls me back up and he says, we missed one of the establishing shots and I need you to come up. And I said, okay. So he said, it's going to be a long day. It's going to be very hard on you. Remember, you signed a contract with me and I am being the most professional I can about it. So I said, now I think I'm in trouble.
Right.
So I get up there and I said, what is the problem, George? He goes, you have to get naked. I said, I beg your pardon? And he goes, we are shooting the establishing shots for all the special effect. We have recreated the bedroom that is in LA that John is filming on. And we've got you a co-partner and you have to get naked. Do you have a really serious problem with that? And I said, no. And he goes, here's this whole stuff. You've read the script. I said, I know the scene you're talking about. I have it memorized. And he goes, good, because I want you to talk it while you do it. And I said, okay, can I meet my co-star? And so then this little, lovely, beautiful 18-year-old with the gorgeous curly brown hair and stuff comes dancing in like a fairy. And I said, hi, it's nice to meet you. I'm Steve. I'm a children's puppeteer. And she goes, I'm a prima ballerina with the San Francisco Ballet. And here we're going to climb into bed and do a sex scene. And I said, God, it just reminds me of when Barbara Streisand and Robert Redford were having a scene in a movie. And his wife goes, what were you wearing? He said, Artemis, which is a cologne. And so I'm like, okay, here we go. And they're like, okay, you guys stop laughing. Get on with it. Here we go. And we had them cracking up at first because it was hard for us to do this. And they're like, hump her harder. I said, what? And okay, stop. Don't do that because now I'm going to crack up. So they said, do John's lines, do this. This is what you do. So we did it. We did the whole scenes. And it's colder than crap in there. The robes were heated. Thank God. They brought us like hot cider and stuff in sip cups and stuff like that. So I got a shot. I thought, oh, Marty's going to love me for this. What did you do? Oh, rolled around with a woman and naked in bed today. So then we're sitting there. It's almost done. The day's almost over. And George we're having a late lunch and we're sitting there. He goes, oh, crap, we have one more scene. I said, why do we keep missing these scenes? He goes, because the kaleidoscope things were so many. He goes, it's the major scene with the rock star and John. And I said, okay, well, you can maybe do one of them. I'll do the other one. And he goes, no, I know you can do one of them, but I can't do it. I have to be behind the camera. This is so critical to the movie, Steve. Here comes the pizza boy. And I said, George, look, if we just strap it on him, the gate is perfect. He goes, do you think he'll do it? I said, if you offer him enough money. Here came the bribe. For 2 hours worth of work, do you want to make such and such money? The guy went to be in a movie.
This is the weirdest porno ever.
I'll do it.
The pizza guy.
So we did it. And got it shot. Then my agent calls me, he says, good news and bad news. And I said, what? And he goes, the movie is great. However, Blake needs to talk to you. So Blake calls me on the phone and says, I'm really sorry, Steve. The scenes that we shot are not going to get by the editors because we have a certain rating. But the one that will work. And the other thing I have to tell you is John got the flu. So there are some parts of the scenes that you did where we will be shooting and using part of that because it's so dark in the film. I said, so that's my butt. So I'm a prick and an ass. And in my first Hollywood movie, he goes, welcome to showbiz, Steve. And I'm like, oh my God. It was crazy. So that was my first Hollywood movie. I'm a prick and an ass.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Didn't that make mom and dad proud? And
So
the Bridge
proud.
Club just loved it. So I've had this strange, first I'm the female jean designer and then the American cars and then this. It launched an interesting and fun career. Then I moved to Portland and I got more and more work up here. It's been an amazing career. I did a We Sing video and got choked where the cabling broke off a giant clam and almost cut my head off.
Oh.
And I had to have stitches. I've been poisoned in one of the puppets. Then I decided, okay, I flew to New York and filmed another puppet movie there, came back and then got involved with Franken's Head, a local puppet theater here. They called me and said, Steve, one of our puppeteers got sick and we're shooting this great big horror splatter flick. And I said, yeah, I know you guys are. Some of the stuff has been made here in my working studio. And well, we know that you did a puppet film. And I said, yes, I did. I finally filmed one of mine for Warner Brothers to see if I could get a contract to do 18 films. And they said, well, we want you to come in and pinch hit. Wear black. I came in, there's this evil priest with like these shark's teeth all around him, holding up a severed woman's head. I said, is blood going to gush out of this? He goes, it's a horror film.
Of course it is.
It's not confetti, Steve. And I said, what am I doing? Is there's an evil priest trying to whip up all these people to try to go and kill a monster in the castle, two of them, a Frankenstein and a zombie. And I said, did they kill the girl? And they said, no, you did.
Mm.
I said, oh, it's a government snow job. So I'm lying to everybody. And they said, yeah, it's fine. I had the time of my life. I spent 3 years on the movie. They actually asked me to voice the evil priest. You peasant, give me a break. The first villain I'd ever done. I've done 32 voices for different people, film, my own film work, I've never been the bad guy. I God, I had the time of my life. It's going to come out on Netflix.
That's awesome.
I was asked also to do a puppet of Rick Rubin, the famous Hollywood recording producer.
Mhm.
So I contacted a friend of mine, Jack Burchell, who works with Cast Iron Carousel, and he'd worked with Michael Curry, another producer here. And they're just huge, internationally known. And so we built a Rick Rubin and flew to LA, set 400 hours. It's the most elaborate marionette I've ever made. And it's on the Showtime series Shangri-La. 4-hour episode. It's 4 hours. Each episode is an hour. The puppet is in the last one for 16 minutes. It rides a moped. It plays pool. It goes swimming underwater. It sits in an ice bath, pulls books out of a shelf. It is an amazing feat of engineering. And then with Michael Curry, I built 27 rod puppets for the premiere of Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Mm.
And so that was extraordinary and crazy. And they were 7 years in Florida in a theme park. So here's this humble little kid that grew up around the world and settled when he was like 17 in Portland, doing all of these puppet things with all these people all around the United States.
And now you have the Puppet Museum.
The Portland Puppet Museum.
Mhm.
So the Portland Puppet Museum was, I figured I've done a giant exhibit at OMSI with 1,000 puppets for 3 months. We brought in 40,000 visitors, which was an amazing feat at the time. So I thought, well, this is my puppet building workshop. I live in an old Victorian farmhouse and a 1870s old grocery store, and my workshop's on the bottom floor. So why don't we just put puppets in there, and I'll run sort of a mini museum. I'll call it Ping Pong's Pint Size Puppet Museum, until we find out from these big Hollywood producers and if we're going to be able to open our own film studio and film our own award-winning shows. So The first year I opened it, it was really neat and it was fun. And we decided we'd open it like 4 days a week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I didn't want to devote my whole entire time to this because I'm waiting for a book deal and a movie deal. And so, because I have a children's book on the market and the video. And so my mom came over and Marty, and we decided we would flip the museum every couple of months to keep it fresh for people. We'd let people just donate whatever they wanted when they come in. It's not really big, but it was really cool. Then we decided to do live shows. So then I'm re-sculpting my whole backyard to do an outdoor theater. And because my marionettes are pretty big to do inside the building. So then I started hiring other puppeteers from Oregon to come in and do smaller shows. And by God, this thing took off. Then suddenly, the New York Times is coming out to film. And then Voice of America is coming out to film, which goes all over Eastern Europe. Then Channel 8, Channel 12, Channel 6 are going, how many of you puppet museums are in the United States? I said, there's 7. And I'm the 3rd oldest one. And I opened this officially in 2012, but I had it going in 2011. And suddenly the newspapers are going, this is so cool. And I went, well, it's sort of a miniature performing arts. And there is the Seattle Puppet Company, and they have puppets in the basement. I know they're looking at opening a museum. And then the University of Santa Cruz is looking to open a museum. So, here we go. We'll see if it works, And it's been working amazing. And so I've had artist after artist. I've had people loan me their puppets. I've had people donate puppets. It grew from 600 to 2,600. And the oldest ones are from the 1700s. And they represent 39 countries these days.
That's just remarkable.
It's an amazing feat. I have great puppeteers. The website was, when it was first running from 1999 to 2017, 5 million hits. So it crashed and burned on us. My partner got very sick. We just lost him this November. And we're rebooting it. So we have the first 7 pages up, which lists all the shows, including an adult cabaret show.
Of course.
I'm going to do a one-man show, sort of what we're talking about here, and perform and stuff. But I do want, before we run out of time, to introduce a friend.
Yeah, you have a friend with you today.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi there. How are you? It's been weeks.
Been weeks?
You look charming as usual. Thank you. Yeah, they let Steve out sometimes. He's going to do a one-man show. I'm going to be in it, though. Telling jokes because this idiot isn't funny. So, got to put some class into the act. This is a big bad wolf. They know who I am. No, this is a big bad wolf from the Portland Puppet Museum. Howdy. Yeah, there it is. So I'm going to be doing some nightclub performing with marionettes that are like 20 string and Mr. Wolf and that kind of thing. Right now in the Portland Puppet Museum is Women of the Ancient World. I took my Ancient World exhibit and I kept getting donated all these puppets that are women. So I thought, it's ladies' night. It's ladies' time. For the last year, I have been telling the story of 9 ladies in history with puppets in the building, from India to China to England. And so it's kind of historic. It's kind of creepy. It's kind of cool. And that will be in until about the middle of June. Then we're going to go to the land of fairy tales. So they can find all out about us at puppetmuseum.com. Facebook, Portland Puppet Museum. YouTube, type in Portland Puppet Museum and look for our logo. It's Ping Pong, our famous panda bear, in the logo. I have 47 films on YouTube.
And I'm going to have links to all of your stuff so people can check out all of these interesting, varied forms of art that you've created.
It's been a coup. It's been a hoot. I'm blessed to love what I do, but I have worked all of my life for it. And I've got myself into burned, threatened, police arrested, all sorts of things in my crazy, crazy career of just trying to make people happy and take you to a place where, the day-to-day grind that we go through and being frightened and being nervous and scared and the weather and the politics and all of this stuff and the wars. That's my job, to take you away for just one small moment and let you have a happy place, whether it's doing an adult cabaret with beer and wine and a smart-ass wolf, or it's watching Pinocchio or, Little Mermaid or any of those. So I hope people will investigate puppets more. Portland's the third largest puppet city in the United States. We have more here per capita. LA is the first, New York is the second, Portland's the third.
Who knew?
Who knew? It's one of the greatest kept secrets, honey. So it's really fun. I've been delighted to be on your talk show. I'm so honored to be here.
Oh, I'm so thankful that you were able to come today. No, this
Thank
is
you.
I learned a ton, and we're not only will I be taking my granddaughter to see some of the shows, I, as a grown up who enjoys wine, I will be partaking in some of those shows too.
Good. Because I'm also going to be doing Mikado this summer, and that's Gilbert and Sullivan's smart-ass wisecracking operator that takes place in fictional Japan. We do it with ping pong, our mascot, all with Chinese pandas in a used kimono factory. It's the whole thing in an hour. That's another beer and wine adult night out. I do adult night out, and then I do family, and then I do workshops for kids to build puppets with fine artists here in Portland.
I-
We're getting good. We're recovering from a death. We're recovering from the COVID and being closed for 2 years. But by gosh, we're back with a vengeance, and you're helping me to get the word out.
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. Well, thank you so much for being here, Steve. This
You're
is
so
great.
welcome.
And when you get the chance, people, go check this out. It's very, very cool.
Portland Puppet Museum. It's over in the Selwood District. 906 Southeast Umatilla, open Thursday through Sunday from 2 to 8.
All right.
Admissions by donation. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
You take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much to Steve for his incredible stories. Man, what a wild life he's led. To follow Steve or to visit the Portland Puppet Museum, see the links in the description below. Please also reach out to me, Christine Lassiter, mortgage broker with Two Rivers Mortgage, to talk about getting pre-approved or just to ask some general mortgage questions. My info is also in the description below. And you can also find more wonderful weird by following Weird Portland United on social media. And then be sure to like, share, subscribe to this podcast so you can see how I'm finding my own weird.